All right, hey everybody, thanks for joining the Heretic Clerics for Realities Breakdown. Tonight we're going to be covering sociology. Tonight, presiding, we have Matt the Apoplectic Atheist. If you want to wave, you can. We have the Iron Chariot, who is flailing his camera around right now. We have myself, the Belligerent Atheist, and we also have Sir Jewelot, who
Yo,
is going to be our hosting cleric for the evening, discussing sociology. And please don't forget to stick around for the atheist spotlight near the end of the show, where we're going to highlight an atheist for just talk about how awesome they are, why we think they're awesome, what kind of stuff that they do, maybe tell some stories and jokes. We also have our scripture of the week coming up later on in the show, as well as current events. We're going to spin the scripture wheel and talk about that. So please stick around for our show, and we have a few great segments coming up for us. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sir Jewelot.
what's up, everybody? It's Sir Jewelot. I have a presentation today about religion and sociology. Religion and sociology are fairly intertwined, as sociology is the study of social behavior and the institutions involved in that, and religion is the collection of the beliefs and the cultural systems. So the religion is both creating sociology amongst groups and is a way that people view the world. So I wanted to get into today how it is that that has come to be, what that means, and how we're going to deal with that going forward. Um, so I'm going to just start with history of the religious societal influence. Um, so the effects of the three major Abrahamic religions are the ones that we're the most familiar with. We know how women are treated. We know how all sorts of minorities and others are treated in the Bible and Torah and Quran, and it's very poorly. And through the march of time, throughout the Europe and Middle East, that led to a lot of very poor sociological conditions, where you had a very chauvinist, elitist, moral society. And with that, you had people accepting their roles as lesser than the patriarchy of society, because it had been mandated by a supernatural force that they were worse than these other people. And the effects of this still extend today in the three major religions, three major Abrahamic religions, to where we say things like, "Oh, it's the first woman to do something. Oh, it's the first X minority to do something." Well, it's because of this background where people were constantly told that they couldn't, that they were less than, that sprung this kind of structure. Certainly, in other religions, such as Hinduism, you had an even stronger role. You had the caste system in Hinduism, where different people at birth were put into different roles in society, where they would be more or less elevated in the societal structure. And to this day, although not part of the legal structure anymore, you have people who, from their birth, are told that they are worse than other people just because of their family. Um, and I find this to be an extremely harmful effect of religion sociologically, because it takes a tremendous psychological toll. The individual experiences a lot of feelings of shame. They're very vulnerable, and they feel like they aren't as truly human as the other members of the society. Um, and certainly with various tribal and other minor religions, there's always been various ways where people had been looked at differently in society, that affected them on a smaller scale. And so I'm not saying that these are necessarily worse than other religions. I don't think any religion has a really great record with sociology, but I find that it's fairly important to look at the major ones because they affect the most people. So going forward, we have politicians seizing on people's ignorance, propagating theocratic legal structures against scientific consensus, things like not having churches being taxed, things like various marriage debates, having "In God We Trust" on the coinage, and as our motto. It's all put together still such an influence on our society, and that influence sociologically creates us as atheists as an underclass. And being outside of the majority is not fully accepted with these kind of structures in place. There are other places in the world that have a more theocratic structure, like an official theocratic structure. Certainly Saudi Arabia is very well known for that, on the Muslim side of things, as are many Muslim countries. But certainly Christian theocracy, while not seemingly as total as it is in the Islamic world, does exist both here and very conservative places like Russia and the Balkans, where you have laws and morals that go against a wider peaceful structure in society, by creating an us versus them mentality. So that's my little spiel on it, and I'll throw it out to the rest of the clerics for discussion.
I have two things I want to say. First, whether people realize it or not, our dominant religion or your dominant religion in your area greatly affects everything to different percentages, but it has its hands in everything. Like, the more I think about it, like all of our relationships, the way we dress, our mannerisms, like sneezing, saying God bless you, the more you look into it, the more you can find links to the dominant religion in your culture. And it's easier for us to see this when we look at other cultures. Like, we see, I don't know, for example, like Hindus have a dot on their head. You know what I mean? So it's easier if you start by looking at other cultures and seeing how their religion affects them on an everyday level, and you can start seeing it in your own life as well. That's the first thing I want to bring up. The second thing is I was listening to a podcast, Thinking Atheist. Obviously, everybody knows about it, but I'm catching up on them at work today, and it was the one with Shelley Segal, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but She's a atheist musician from Australia, and she has a Jewish background. Basically, her family is really Jewish, and I remember talking to you about that, Buck, and I wanted to share her story really quickly and see what you think about this, because she really enjoyed her Jewish culture for a long time until one day she kind of went back. Her dad was sorry, I don't know what it's called, but he's like the leader of their synagogue in the area, and she went back for service. I don't know what they're called again. Sorry, and Buck, you were telling me about this before, that they have to be separated. The men and the women have to be separate. And she said that the women aren't even allowed to read from the Torah, apparently. And she said when she went back to share this event with her family after being away from it for a little while, I might be getting the story a little bit wrong, but she was sitting there with all the other women, and she just broke down and started crying because she realized like how separated they are, and how they are in every aspect of their society or whatever, their culture. The women are made to be different than the men. Like she said that men aren't even allowed to touch women. When a man would come over to the house, he would shake hands with the other men and not basically not shake hands with the women and stuff like that. So it's just a story that I wanted to share with you, Buck, and it made me think of what we had talked about in the past, and how I know you kind of like your Jewish culture, and how it might be different from a woman's perspective, seeing how they're treated differently. Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think Tracy Harris has gone over this on the Atheist Experience before, about how having a Jewish culture is very different from practicing the Jewish religion. I very much decry all the practices of the religion itself, of Judaism, but it is a culture in America, and the proper word for it would be Ashkenazi, but it is referred to as a Jewish culture here, and having that different background and being able to share our culture and our memories with each other usually transcends the things like how the Orthodox and Hasidics act amongst themselves.
Yeah. Do you have anything, Iron?
Uh, not right now. I'm just kind of honestly, I'm really enjoying. I'm learning some new stuff, and I'm just kind of like sitting back and taking it all in personally.
Dude, you're high on life right now, aren't you?
That Hindu dot is called a bindi, by the way.
And we can. I just want to bring it back, I guess, for a second to what you were saying before, Matt, about how she was not able. She's not supposed to read from the Torah, and I mean, we all know the position of women, um, in all the Abrahamic religions. God hates girls. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah, that came to my mind too, especially with her being a musician, and she actually has a song that's pretty kind of like that. I think it's called Eve or something like that. But yeah, I thought of you too. I should have mentioned that. But
Oh no, not a problem. But what I was going to say was, there's a direct example of women not necessarily being able to read specifically. I didn't have that, but I do have, 1 Timothy 2:12, which we're all very versed in. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. That's just my reminder. Just in all the Abrahamic religions, how they deformate the character of women and how they continue to push and keep that down. I'm also learning a lot tonight, especially from Buck. I don't know a lot about Judaism specifically as like the heritage, the culture, and that's not something that I'm well versed in. But as far as just the Abrahamic tenet of it, I kind of got that. But I'm learning tonight as well. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, right. You want?
Yeah, it's no big deal. I just wanted to say, although I know that the show is not specifically, the topic isn't women in religion, but since we're on the topic, it really bothers me that women, I see women of all religions, especially in like a debate environment, defend their specific religious beliefs, lack of equality towards their gender. Like when Richard Dawkins would have a debate with a Muslim, and a Muslim woman would get up in the crowd and you know, I don't mind that I'm not allowed to speak in public, and I don't mind that I have to cover up. I choose to do it. It's not because of my religion. I choose to, and I mean, to a certain extent, I understand that you have culture there, and part of it's a cultural thing, but at the same time, I mean, these are the same women that are suffering at the hands of their religion, and yet they defend it no matter what. And that really bothers me. Like, this guy is arguing for your right to speak as a free human being, and you put these people down. Like, they're on your side. Shut up.
Yeah, just to kind of further what you were saying about the syndrome. It's Stockholm syndrome when you start to relate to your captor, and you start to feel not specifically love, but empathy for and sympathy for your captor, and you start to embrace their vision, their wants, and their desires become yours. And that's that Stockholm syndrome that is very, very well played throughout all the major religions today. And I'm going to say all, but what I really mean by all is the ones that are prevalent enough to cause everyone to shoot and blow up everyone all the time is really what I mean by that. Those are your Stockholm syndrome religions. I'm not speaking specifically on Taoism or anything like that, but all your Abrahamic ones for sure are huge into proliferating that Stockholm syndrome.
I want to mention. I just wanted to tell a little personal thing that I was thinking of today. I don't know if you have something more important, Buck. You can go if you want. But as I was thinking about this stuff earlier, this is kind of silly and kind of stupid, but like in my house, like I'm kind of enlightened to this stuff, I guess, and I try to think about it a lot. And I always feel guilty that like my wife does the dishes a lot more, and like it's kind of expected that she's gonna clean stuff. And like she can hear me now. I wish she couldn't hear me because I don't want her to hear this. But like I feel bad about it, and like I always try to like justify and think of ways that I can like make up for it. So I like try to do the guy stuff around the house. You know, like, oh, I'll fix your car, I'll do the guys, I'll work on the house, and I feel like it's kind of a good trade-off, but I feel like a lot of those roles were put there because of our society and, you know what I mean, all of the stuff that led up to this point. And I know that women are a lot more nurturing by, you know what I mean, just by their makeup and whatnot, but, like, how did we get to this point where, like, it's just expected that yeah, she can. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, even as an atheist, like, thinking about this all the time, these situations are still, like, proliferated. I don't know if you guys have anything to say on that, but I think about it all the time, you know?
No, I think you're right. Is that especially there was this huge cultural movement in Americana in the 1950s, which is to kind of jump backward in the video to where Buck was talking about how we stamp in God we trust on our money. Back in the 1950s, I want to say 1954, maybe 1956, when it started to be really proliferated is when we started doing the In God We Trust. But that era in the late 1940s and that Mad Men era is when we started to really transform our culture into this more religious culture. And the reason that we did that was, control, fear, post-war depression, and social and emotional anxiety. And it was a big part of our history, but that's where a lot of these things happened. You got to think around that era is a lot of our parents. Maybe some viewers watching young enough, our parents' parents, and that that upbringing was furthered. Those ideas and that culture and that society and those traditions were pushed down to the next generation. And some of us, and more of us, are coming out from that now and realizing that that's not necessarily the way to be. But at the same point, that's what happened at that point. And this sociology can really play into it. And Buck's more smart about the sociology and the socioeconomic and sociocultural trends that make these things happen. But that is what happened. And Buck, would you like to extrapolate a little further on the sociology of 1950s Americana?
Of course. I have a few thoughts about where we've been going with all this. One, talking about women's place in religion is certainly not off topic. The role of women in sociology is usually a very key element of the structure that's being developed. And it's come to the point here in America where conservatism has produced a culture where, as I was talking about in my intro, a theocracy element into politics. There was probably more of a theocratic element before, but that was before we really knew how to have structures that were outside of that realm. So I think that going forward in America, because of our free speech, we're going to come to a point where we have a lot less religion and politics. I feel like it's coming to sort of its death throes, over the long haul, like over the next 20 years, just because the internet is a great disinfectant of one's predeterminations. And I feel like the further our society becomes educated on both science and secular morality, their benefits are very much useful in our society. Another thing that you had brought up was the term socioeconomic. And that shows in real terms what the impact of the sociological structures is on various elements of society. And it's no accident that here in America, if the more white and waspy you are, the more likely you are to be wealthy. It is part of the sociological structure. It creates racism, it creates sexism, and these things, even when they're no longer codified, do stick around in a sociological sense. And so you have things like, oh, our company would never discriminate against anybody. Oh, well, except our guy secretly has racist thoughts in the back of the head that hires everybody. And so you get something like that, and it shows in things like the pay gap and things like that. Certainly, religion and sociology encompasses a lot of our other issues in politics and beyond in those ways. To come back to earlier, when we were discussing Jewish culture and why I consider it different than the religion itself. you can go watch the Neckbeard Nation episode on that, and I get into it more fully. But we have Ashkenazi Judaism was the culture of the peoples who were Jewish throughout Eastern Europe. And they were not in one geographic place, but they were a culture that was spread around. And they sort of met up here in America, and from the outsider's perspective, they were all Jews, so that's what Jews were like. But there are other kinds of Jews in the world: Sephardic Jews, Ethiopian Jews, gluten-free Jews, and we find I'll talk about Jews as long as I want, Matt. And we'll find ways where we have this shared culture. But I'm gonna take it around the horn another time to see if anyone has sort of a final comment that they want to make on this subject before we move on with the program.
You also forgot low sodium and GMO free juice. I just wanted to point that out.
I got something if nobody else wants to go. I just wanted to bring up the social justice kind of thing. How it went from like women, African Americans to women or whatever. I can't remember. And then to homosexual. You know what I mean? Is there anything to say about that? Is that like, if it all could happen again, would it happen in that same order again? You know, or what do you think, Buck?
I suppose. A lot of these issues are just going to be things where we figure it out over time with a more secularized culture. But I don't know. My answer.
All right, so how about this? Since since we have gay marriage legalized, or as BA like to say, marriage. Now, are atheists next? Are we the next ones to become accepted? What do you think? What do you think the next step is going to be?
I think we are on the cusp of a not necessarily YouTube atheist type, but certainly a less religious type of culture in our society.
I mean, I agree it's less religious, but I don't know. Like when you look at the actual percentages, the more you say that, the more it gives religious people to reason to feel. I'm drawing a blank here.
Persecuted.
You know what I mean? Persecuted. They take anything you say like that and run with it. That's all they ever say is, anti-religion is growing, and them atheists are growing, and Satanists are growing, and they're taking over. When if you actually look at the numbers, I mean, yeah, it might be growing, but they still largely outnumber us. I don't know.
Well, and from my perspective, I am anti-religion. I want them to stop being religious, and I want to take their guns, and I don't want them to have their churches. I am fairly extreme on a lot of these fronts. So it's one thing to try and paint yourself in the corner of the honest broker. It's another matter entirely to lie about your position. And for me, I can't say like, oh, we're on equal ground and we're just debating. No. We need all that shit out of here. I care what people are doing with their personal time because it impacts the rest of us. So that's sort of my view on religion and sociology, and why it is I had it as our subject today. Speaking of which, if we head over to the Heretic Cleric news desk, we have an article today that I found in the Irish Times, because Ireland is an interesting country to look at for this, being a very Catholic country that has recently recognized gay marriage. And just showing all of the problems they're having with abortion. And from a sociological standpoint, this article elucidates that from very early on in schooling, they are taught to not even debate such subjects, to have a religious opinion indoctrinated into them, and just shut off after that point. And it's a very sad state when the sociology of religion gets in the way of health issues. And certainly it's doing that here in the U.S. with our abortion and anti-vaxxers and, Scientologists. But where it has a really real, not to say it's not real, but where it has a more societal-wide effect when the governing force is very much intertwined with religion. You get places where people pretty much lack the ability to follow the scientific and sociological evidence. And so with that, you get practices that don't benefit anybody. I don't know if anyone else has read this. Anyone have thoughts about it?
I haven't read it, but I kind of wanted to read the verse that they say early on, and one of the poem and one of the leaflets, the anti-abortion leaflets that they hand out, if I could. And it's in the article. It's up on the screen. It says, "Help me, Mammy. They're tearing me apart. My little hands, my little feet, my baby face, my baby heart." And one of they're talking about specifically the pain and what the fetus feels in regards to that. But at the bottom, they do go back and they discredit it, where they did a comprehensive 2005 meta-study by the Journal of the American Medical Association, where they concluded the lack of cortical connection before 24 weeks implies that pain is not possible until after 24 weeks. Furthermore, there was good evidence that the fetus is sedated by the physical environment of the womb and usually does not awaken before birth. That's just another example of lack of information turns into fear-mongering. So instead of looking to the information, instead of trying to discover and investigate, what we can do is just try to use that as a fear-mongering agenda to further our own cause, which I'm not sure how many international viewers we have, but in the United States of America, that is a very, very common practice, especially on Fox News, where they do it all the time, just to fearmonger, to put the fear into everyone's hearts and minds to further their own agenda. So that's what I wanted to kind of point out.
I just wanted to say that this abortion thing is just another example of, humans having to fight for people having basic human rights because of religion, and a lot of human rights that we're fighting for now, like gay marriage, are not granted to those people because of the religious history. Women's suffrage or segregation, they're all it's all the same thing. And I hate the fact that when a group is granted basic rights that the rest of us already have, we look at it as progression. Well, that we have to look at it as progression, because it shouldn't have to be progression. There shouldn't be an issue. Humans should have basic rights. Look, the man doesn't have to carry a baby for 9 months and doesn't have to go through the body changes. And I agree that, if there's a committed relationship between two people, I think the man's opinion should count, but it's ultimately the woman's decision, because the man doesn't have to deal with all the pain and the changes of the body.
So, on that note, does it make it any better that they go so far as to say that men should not spill their seed? Because we can take it all the way back to sperm. Is sperm considered a living thing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's only half of a human, but they do. A lot of religious people do say that it's like sacrilege to spill your seed. So at least they're going fucking full bore on it, Not, I'm just kind of kidding, but yeah, share that link. That's kind of funny. I mean, it kind of makes the point that it's not a human being, For me, I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and certainly on the aspect of whether it's a human being or not, my answer is generally that semantics aren't really important here, or whether it feels pain or not. Speaking as someone whose brother and sister-in-law just lost their baby the other day at 37 weeks, you'd think like, oh, I'd be all about right to life right now, but it's one of those things where it's more important to have this belief than it is to have a feeling on it. And I don't think this should be a debate that's couched in feeling. So it's a socioeconomic argument, and it fits in nicely with the sociology theme, in that we're not allowing women to control their body and sort of making up these touchy-feely sort of reasons why they can't do it. So I'll switch over to BA for a second here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Buck, and sorry, that sucks. I did want to read a couple of comments, but before I do that, I'd like to go back to what we were talking about before. This link backs to iron, what you were saying, and you as well, Matt. This is just a statistic that I've had actually highlighted up here for a minute, and everyone's probably read it by now, but I'm going to read it out loud. Roughly 1 in 12 Irish women of reproductive age have had an abortion. That day, however, I had no concern for women. I went home and explained to my mother that abortion is murder because the fetus is a person too. And that really just goes back to what we were saying before about individuals trying to keep other people down, using this religion and to fearmonger and to oppress as many people as possible. It's easy to control people when you keep them pinned down, and it's easy to control people when you think that they're not worth it and they don't have control over themselves. So the Warhammer, one of our guests did ask, is the fetus really a being at that point? Isn't it really more of a very large tumor developmentally? He also goes on to say fear-mongering, or as I like to call it, the favorite political strategy of conservatives. Agreed, that's what we were talking about before. Let's see, and then Mooskal. Sorry, I don't want to underpronounce it there. A good fiction book about Jewish culture is The Chosen by Chaim Potok. Even though I went to a Catholic high school, I had to read that book in English class. I just wanted to read some of those comments before we went on, because there's some good stuff there, and I think Apoplectic had something that he wanted to say.
Real quick, I want to put this out there because this is what helped me realize that it's not a human being the most. Okay, so picture this scenario. A woman has a child. The child, birth goes fine. Child grows up to be, I don't know, 15 years old. 15 years old, something happens to the child. And actually, this was put to me through Tracy Harris. So I just want to say I'm bringing her background again from the atheist experience. So anyways, she put it like this. 15-year-old kid has some life-threatening debilitation and needs to be hooked up to the mother to survive. Is it the government's job and our job to force that mother to hook back up to that child to keep that child alive at that point? And it kind of brings it into realization that how the fetus isn't really a living person yet, because you can't make a woman do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably getting that a little messed up, but you get the gist. What do you got, Iron?
I'd just like to bring something up, and this is something that Mrs. Guy in Wheelchair brought to my attention the other day, and I thought it was kind of interesting. If a person dies and has harvestable organs, I don't know if that's a word, harvestable, but if they have salvageable organs and someone needs them, we are not allowed to use them unless that person gave consent before they died. So they are no longer a living human being, yet they still have the right of a living human being. So we have to get consent from people to use their organs after they're dead and gone and no longer using them. But I'm sorry, hang on just a second. The fact of the matter is, we give more rights to a dead body than a fetus. I'm probably messing that up. I just got tongue-tied. But basically, like, the dead body still has rights of a human being, of a living human being, more than the mother who is a living human being. And that's just twisted in every direction to me.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, that a dead body has more rights over their person than a pregnant or birthing woman.
Right, and so, first of all, you were pronouncing a Jewish name, and I had to step in. It's Chaim. You have to have the anyways, so about when something is alive or dead, I don't think that really matters. Like, somewhat facetiously, I've said in the past that I'd be okay with fourth-term abortions because the baby still has no idea what's going on, and for all of the same reasons, socioeconomic or whatnot, that the person may need to abandon pregnancy, these conditions are still readily existing after birth. And so, if I could be swayed either way on that, but I'm going to sort of wrap up this mini segment here and head on over to our atheist spotlight of the day.
We have one more segment.
What am I doing? I'm on the wrong slide.
No, that's why I'm the mediator.
Sorry, I skipped
not a problem.
slide.
Not a problem. That's why I'm the mediator. So the question was poised, and let me try it again. You corrected me. It's Chaim. All right. Chaim. All right. Now I pronounce it Ren Hook. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know.
Okay.
The question was posed in the chat. How do you pronounce Ren Hook? And I pronounce it Ren Hook. So, but I think now it's time in the show for our weekly scripture. This is the point in the show where Matt reaches behind him. He grabs the wheel. He usually has to disconnect his headphones. He reaches behind himself, gets the wheel, puts it up on the desk, spins it, selects a scripture from the wheel, and then he shows it to the camera, reads it, and then we laugh a little bit, or we get a little sad, either way, and then we talk about it. Matt, are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
gonna stop trying holding the thing in front of the camera. That's kind of stupid now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that anyone really cares. They could all be the same thing.
Everybody
as far as I know.
cares, but we're evolving. So. All right.
Oh, we're evolving. Oh, sorry. All of you are still welcome to care. So spin the wheel.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Before we get started, the Warhammer says, "Damn, the segment is so scripted."
Yeah, I know. Well, that's live TV, or that's TV, man. We got whatever. All right. Ah, dude, it's perfect, dude. All right, you guys. I did not cheat. I swear. Okay, you ready? But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered dishonoreth her head. Corinthians 11:5 or 1 Corinthians 11:5.
Hold on, I think this puts you at like 6 for 8 on being on topic with these.
Dude, it is a sign from God. All right.
It's predestiny, is what it is. I didn't even know what the theme was until today, so this is definitely predestined. We can't control that.
Or I'm just a sleight of hand expert, and I have them all like hidden on me, and I just pull out the one that.
You don't have to be a sleight of hand expert. You put it out of sight of the camera. You could have picked it up off the table, is what I'm saying. That's why you held it in front of the camera before.
Yeah, maybe you're right. All right. Maybe I'm cheating. I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know. Well, obviously you're not cheating if you don't know if you're cheating. I think it's easy to say.
So yeah, a woman is not allowed to pray or prophesy, whatever the hell, I can't even say that word, without her head covered. What up with that?
Is that prophet? Is that like what prophetha?
Yeah, it's like a Thor guy. So why don't Christian people follow that? Because of their new covenant or whatever? I mean, Jewish people kind of follow. Do Jewish people still follow that? They kind of do it, right?
Yes.
So Jewish people are down with it. Muslims are down with it. What the
Well, that's
fuck,
because
dude?
the Torah is a little more Old Testament, and some of the other reading material that's passed out in the synagogues, a little more Old Testament than the new and fluffy New Testament, where Jesus comes in with a sword on an iron chariot and slays everyone before him.
Did somebody call me? No.
No, Jesus rode you while wielding a sword and was slashing everyone down.
I remember those days.
That was the first coming, when Jesus was riding the iron chariot.
There's definitely a spot in my heart that's reserved for Jesus that no one else can touch. I'd just like to say, though, that while the scripture said that women must have their head covered, it did not say what they have to have their head covered with, or at least not that I heard. So technically, I mean, you could just grab whatever's around you and put it on your head, grab a salad bowl or something and put it on your head and pray. I mean, some tinfoil, it didn't specify what has to be on your head. It just, something has to be on your head. Have somebody come sit on your head and pray. I mean, I just think that's funny. Your head has to be covered, but we're not going to tell you what to cover it with. So just grab the closest thing to you and drape it over yourself.
As long as it's not made from two different fabrics.
Technically, if you're indoors, your head is technically covered. It's covered by the roof of the building.
That actually is true in Judaism.
Really? Holy shit. Dude, I am like a secret Jew, dude.
Why are you trying to undermine the word of God? Okay, you know what he meant. Don't be a smartass. God is the heavenly Father, and you shall not undermine his word. He gave you the gift of life, damn it, and you will show him respect.
What are you going to do, roll over my foot?
You don't want to know what I'm going to do, but when I do what I'm going to do, you're not going to like what I'm going to do because I'm going to have done it, and it's going to be uncomfortable.
I think I'm going to cut that one segment out where Iron is talking and he does his whole monologue about God, and then he's going to run over your foot. I'm going to post that as an extra reel on the Heretic Clerics channel, so everyone can hear Iron Chariot and can link to it about him praising the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. 8-pound, 4-ounce baby Jesus.
Absolutely, and the idea that Jesus was riding Iron Chariot while coming, leaving a hole in him was excellent stuff right there.
It was the first coming, specifically. I want to make sure that we understand. The second coming is nigh, for he will once again ride the Iron Chariot during the second coming.
So Iron Chariot was Jesus' first.
And
No, I
last.
bet that's where the wheelchair came from. Jesus just rode me so hard I couldn't walk anymore.
And he fucked your ass up.
Whoa, who's talking about fucking asses here? I'm just talking about Jesus riding me. God, why do you gotta get so graphic with everything? Fucking ass, listening to you.
In the anus, in the mouth, in the dick, everywhere, all the fucking.
You fucked me
now
in
we're
the
talking
dick.
about urethral dilation, and you know what? I think this show has gone pretty interesting, I think.
I guarantee you I would remember being fucked in the dick. I've had plenty of surgeries and been under plenty of anesthesia, and trust me, I've felt pain. I would remember being fucked in the dick. And that...
You guys, we do have one female follower here, right? So, just saying.
Yeah, guys, quit talking about dicks. What the hell's wrong with you?
This escalated really quickly. Going back to the point, I guess, we were talking about women having to cover their heads. Buck, do you have any Jewish cultural analysis for us?
Yeah, women do cover their heads, the higher levels of Judaism, generally speaking. It's certainly not taken as far as it is in the Muslim world, but they do have a cloth that they wrap around all their hair when they're out and about. But both in Judaism and Islam, what Matt was saying about being in the home, you're allowed to take it off when you're at home. So I don't know if it is exactly the building counting as a cover, but it is the way that it works. As far as it's often called a babushka that the Jewish women wear, and so you can go from there and look at that. Yeah, it is less a part of the culture now than it used to be. But I'm going to flip it to IC. Go.
Wow, I got a cool nickname. That's awesome. I'd just like to ask, because I didn't hear anywhere where it specified how much of the head had to be covered either. So, like, would a headband count? Because, like, I don't think it specified exactly how much coverage the head needed to have.
Dude, I was thinking maybe that shoe on head meme, that's where that came from.
Depends how Jewish you are. Certainly for men, we have just that little yarmulke thingy. And for women, it's... For the very Orthodox, it's the whole thing. But for more conservative types instead of Orthodox, it's sort of just this sort of lacy, frilly thing that they put on their head.
What about for Sir Jew-a-lot? What type of Jew is that, and do you have to cover your head?
I should cover my head because it's revolting, but I don't have to because I'm a cultural Jew, and one of the parts of culture that I never got was wearing hats and shit, so I was never big into that. So, I am, what kind of Jew is Sergio Lot? Well, I am what's called a Gino, which is a Jew in name only. So that's a horrible, horrible Jew, according to other Jews.
I just wanted to ask, like, what if a woman is like doing a wow. What if a woman is doing like a headstand while praying? If she's standing on her head, does that count? Like, is the floor then covering her head?
No, and I went over this a little bit in the Neckbeard Nation episode. There are certain positions you have to be standing in Judaism in order to pray, and you could say the same about Islam. They have much more elaborate positions, but often during Jewish prayers, people will be swaying or grabbing certain cloths and whatnot. So I don't think that would count for that reason.
We have a comment coming in before we go any further. It was by the Warhammer, and I'm going to try to pronounce this Jew style because I'm learning how to pronounce everything a little more Hebrew or cultural Jewish from Sir Jew-a-lot's pronunciation dictionary. Hold on. Look at Babu. That's a noun. An old woman or grandmother, North American, a headscarf tied under the chin, typical of those worn by Polish and Russian women. Again, speaking from Sir Jew-a-lot's pronunciation dictionary, that's babushka.
Babushka, or as I would say in upcoming video with Iron Chariot, Babushka!
Well, I think it's time for our atheist spotlight. Now, Sir Jew-a-lot, you had picked out an atheist spotlight. Would you like to highlight them and talk about why they're awesome, and then we'll wrap up the show?
Nah, but I will anyways. My choice this week was That Atheist Show. And you can see them at thatatheistshow.com and on YouTube at That Atheist Show. They're very much into First Amendment issues, that public education needs to be evidence-based, and I thought interesting for an episode about culture and sociology of religion. They're from Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is currently the U.S. state that is having the hardest time understanding the world, science and theocracy and whatnot. And so they're doing some really great work on their channel, trying to get them on the show, so at some point they're about as new as we are to this whole having a show thing. So I thought it would be cool to sort of talk with them at some point soon. You guys can let us know if you want us to do that. They're cool because they are very smart and they are very succinct, and they present very elegant atheist points. So that is my atheist spotlight for this week.
Okay, you said to let everyone, or for everyone to let us know if they want them to come on the show, and I just have one response. No! They're all going to laugh at you! They're all going to laugh at you! No, I'm just kidding. I think it'd be really cool to have them on. So everybody, thanks for stopping by tonight. Thanks for watching our video. If you've watched this long, Thank you. You're probably bored by now. But I really appreciate you guys stopping by, checking us out. Realities Breakdown tonight was about sociology. Please check out our other videos. Please check out That Atheist Show at www.thatatheistshow.com. For those that don't understand my stutter or didn't see the link, that was www.thatatheistshow.com. You can also check them out on YouTube. We will have links in the description below. So again, thank you for stopping by tonight. And to everyone, I just want to say, deuces.